morning, everyone. First of all, I'm going to give you a little pre-warning. If you are not quite awake yet and you're in one of those early time zones like myself, you are going to be awake by the time we are done with this conversation, honey. Thank you so much for investing your time with us on this Wednesday morning. My name is Monisha Bush. You can call me Mo, like I've mentioned before, and I will be your gracious moderator for today's panel discussion. Look at all of you looking great. I see you. Quick intro for me. I know that Delisha kind of gave you guys a little bit of a background. I'm an experienced IT professional, and my background covers almost every aspect of technology deployment, including but not limited to software deployment, network engineering, field systems programming, security management, among other areas. And I mention that because I like to say that I didn't really find cybersecurity, but cybersecurity kind of found me. So I will be your most gracious moderator in having this discussion about getting experience when you have no experience. And I see we are 150 strong in this thing, okay? So today we have an amazing panel for our New2Cyber Catch-22, getting experience when you have no experience discussion, where we'll be talking about how difficult it is to be new in cybersecurity. The frustration of being told that you don't qualify for opportunities because you don't have any experience, yet you can't get the experience without the opportunity. Is that you? Is that you? You're in the right place, if so. This discussion is definitely a part of the HBCU track, so we will also highlight some very specific topics that caters towards Blacks in cybersecurity. Before we dive into the panel introductions, I want to get a quick temperature of the room. Show of hands, and you can definitely just hit the raise hand button if you like. Show of hands, how many of you are completely new to this industry? How many is completely new? And I want to remind you that this discussion is a safe place. There are no judgments, as we are simply here just to help you. So if you're not the type that really likes to be interactive, that's fine. We love that you just listen, but we do like to kind of keep it organic and kind of feel like you're in a conversation in a room amongst friends. Another show of hands. How many of you have some beginner or very basic knowledge of cybersecurity? Show of hands for that. I see a couple in there. That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you. So our goal today is that whatever your role is within this industry, or even if you are simply just thinking about diving into cybersecurity, is that you come away with something, whether it be a new idea, a fresh perspective, a new strategy, with the expectation that you can apply these in your life, or better yet, your future cyber career path directly. Our panelists are here to help with practical ideas for building a network of professional contacts, leaning into CTF Capture the Flag events, leveraging free resources like podcasts, and creating realistic outlines for self-study in areas of interest. Here's the format so you can kind of get an idea of what to expect. We'll take a few moments for each of the panelists to briefly introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about their background in the industry. I'll kick off the conversation asking questions that draw out some of the high-level themes and trends that we should kind of be thinking about. At any point, please feel free to ask specific questions in our Slack channel, #PanelCatch22. Ask questions that you've just been dying to ask, that you already know you want to ask, or just specific questions that may arise from topics mentioned in this discussion. Sound good? Great. Let's get started with the panel introductions. If you don't mind, I want you guys to please just give your name, title, and organization, and then we'll expand in detail on each of your roles later in the conversation. Teneika, can we start with you, hon?
Yep, Tameika Reed, and the name of my organization is, or nonprofit is Women in Linux. And you can find us at womeninlinux.org.
Thank you, short and sweet. All righty, Teneika.
My name is Teneika. I am a data science product manager. I've been in also consulting, so I've dabbled in a little bit of cyber data engineering and data analysis. Outside of that, I share free resources on my Twitter and LinkedIn for anyone who's looking to pivot, upskill, or grow their career.
Oh, awesome. Davin, we'll have you go next.
See, I was gonna say I was gonna be the gentleman and let all the ladies go first, but that's okay.
It's all right. We believe in equal opportunity over here.
Well, it's funny that you should mention that because before I even introduce myself, I just want to take a moment and acknowledge all the Black girl magic that is happening right here.
Well,
you don't see this a lot. It's Women's History Month. We just had Black History Month, and what you're seeing here is special. I am gratefully outnumbered, and I am proud to be outnumbered on this panel. Now, with that being said, I am Davin Jackson. I'm an application security engineer. I mainly test mobile applications and APIs. I'm also I do pen testing as well. And I also share resources on my blog site, Twitter. I also have a podcast or two podcasts, Alpha Cybersecurity and Hacker Valley Blue, which you see over there in the corner. And I'm just happy to be here with everybody. So good morning to all, or wherever we are.
good morning or afternoon or night. And we're definitely happy to have you here too. Thank you for giving us those flowers. Tanisha.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Hello from Virginia. I'm very excited to be here. I'm Tenisha Martin, the Executive Director for BlackGirlsHack. I am so happy to be here with this beautiful Black excellence going on this panel this morning. So I'm excited for that. And I also want to give a shout out to both Mo and Delisha, and I'm excited to hear all of the plans for world domination this morning. So that is amazing.
Awesome. Thank you all for those brief intros. I know that it had to be hard to be short and sweet with as much as you guys got going on, but listen, honey, we are going to make the most out of this hour here. And I got some questions. My first question is for you, Teneika. I hear this question a lot from people who maybe simply just don't know or are new to cyber, but in your own words, can you just briefly explain to me what is cybersecurity?
In my own words, that's a good one because I get that question a lot too. Cybersecurity is from my perspective is a vast amount of knowledge and things to do. And I know that sounds very, very broad, but let me break that down. Because cybersecurity exists in your every single day-to-day. So cybersecurity for me, from my perspective, could be security of your phone. It could be security of your own personal information, far as your name, your address, where you live. We see the hacks that have come out here recently with even OKTA this week and people getting access to the admin control. So that's not just cyber at work, you know, it's also defense of that, right? We even have, and we want to really get real with it, we even have to think about space and what does that look like when we're talking about, and when I say space, I'm talking literally like Mars, the moon. I'm really talking about like, how do we secure our satellites? How do we seen the security hacks on the power grids? And even when you start thinking about that, you probably want to think about wind turbine. What does security look like? So when people ask what is cybersecurity, I think of things that we have to secure and who plays a role in securing those things, from the code all the way to the physical hardware, all the way to the person you trust to do the work. And that sounds very broad, but it just gives you an aspect or it gives you a vision of where cybersecurity and where you can go in this particular field across the board.
And I agree with that. I second that. I mean, that's why I thought it was important to ask that question first, being that this is a New2Cyber summit. I mean, literally, sometimes when you do these type of summits, you just go over all of the basics, you know, the basic verbiage that some may not know being in this space. And I really appreciate your definition of that. Just to kind of add to that, I do have here the Webster's version for anyone who may just want to know how it is being described and defined via Webster. So cybersecurity is the application of technologies, processes, and controls to protect systems, networks, programs, devices, and data from cyber attacks. It aims to reduce the risk of cyber attacks and protects against the unauthorized exploitation of systems, networks, and technology, i.e. everything Tameika said. All right, thank you. Now, Teneika, so I'm gonna have to enunciate because as y'all can tell, we have a Monisha, a Tennisha, a Tameika, a Teneika, and a Davin. So
It was a great month for the English.
I go by Mo, so we good over here. But I'm gonna try to enunciate because this next question is for Teneika. As a U.S. Navy veteran, what advice do you have for current service members who may be thinking of transitioning into a cyber profession? You think it's helpful to have a military background?
I want to start with first, I am not a veteran, but I do work for the US Navy.
Gotcha.
And salute to all of our veterans out there. There is a lot of resources that veterans can tap into, as well as service members. So if you are currently in service or you are a veteran, there are platforms that you can access from your. There's a platform at work that you can access free labs. You'll also get vouchers. So if you use your email address, so whether it's Navy, Air Force, Army, Marine Corps, if you use that email address on several different platforms, such as Microsoft, you'll get free certification vouchers. You'll also get vouchers for training and stipends for large courses that do teach you how to use and be in cyber. With that said, everyone that is in the military may not all work in cyber, but there is a inherent cost that you need to follow. You get cybersecurity training every year. Everyone has to take that same exact training as a service member, as a vet, as a civilian. We all have to take that cybersecurity training. If you are looking to dive deeper into why we're taking that training, I would definitely start to investigate that. Ask your leadership for time. We do shadowing. So it is not like I'm going to work and I'm going to just watch someone do it. You are given 3 months of specific time where you work full time in another division. I would ask your leadership if you could shadow someone. We call them rotations in the military, but if you could do a rotation with someone in that cybersecurity department, you're already learning how to secure yourself, your workstation, your environment, especially if you're working in high security areas. You are learning it on another level. Your cybersecurity training is completely different. So continue to be curious and ask questions around, well, why are we doing this? Well, why, when this hack happens, we have to secure these resources, and why do we have to use these facilities? So leverage the resources that you have first before you go out there and pay for anything, especially as a service member, because there are tons of resources that you can get while you're active, especially when you become a vet. But while you're active, there are so many resources because they want to keep people in. They'll give you all the resources that you can. But once you get those resources, those certifications, those trainings, if you decide to transition out, you could go into pretty much any industry, but I do see a lot of service members transition to consulting, and they are very successful.
Awesome, awesome.
I just wanted to add to that, because from a veteran's perspective as well.
Okay, there's my veteran. Thank you for your service.
Nah, no problem. You could take advantage. There's a lot of people who are in the service who want to do the 20. So that's, they re-enlist up until 20 years. If you aren't happy with your current role or MOS or whatever your specification is for the military, you can see about doing cross training. You can cross train into cybersecurity if you have an interest in it. At that point, it's pretty much learn as you go, and the resources are available to you. But if you do get out, you always can use the Montgomery GI Bill, assuming everybody gets out with an honorable discharge. Another one that a lot of people don't know is if you have any type of service-connected disability. So if you hurt yourself while you were in the service, you can get a service-connected disability rating. And if you have a rating over 10%, you can get what is called vocational rehabilitation, which is something that's separate from the GI Bill. And you can get a lot of certifications that way. You can do a lot of trainings that way. You meet with a counselor, they come up with a plan. They'll even get you the supplies that you need. I know people who've gotten like brand new computers and laptops and monitors and everything that they said they needed in order to succeed. And not only do they give you the training, when you're done with the training, they actually help you try to get a job and even offer you a stipend while you're doing it. So these are opportunities that they really don't talk about too much, in the VA facilities, but these are things that you could take advantage of. Also, don't be afraid to ask if they offer military discounts or what do you offer to veterans. A lot of veterans come out and, and me included, even when you just said, thank you for your service, I cringe a little. But a lot of people who come out as veterans, they're too proud to ask those questions. And I get it, you served your country and you really don't want to kind of make it known, but you served your country, you did what you had to do. Some of us paid the ultimate sacrifice. So, you honor them by taking advantage of the opportunities that you can get. And a lot of training facilities will give you, 20% off, 30% off, 50% off. I've seen some training courses where they give it to you absolutely free just because you're a veteran. So, don't be afraid to ask those questions and see what you can get. I get it, in the grand scheme of things, it's like, oh, it's only 10%, but it's 10% less that you have to worry about and 10% more that stays in your pocket, especially when you're talking about getting some certifications. High sands. But it's definitely a resource.
Nice little plug there. We appreciate that. And it definitely seems like there's some advantages of having a military background or being a service member. So I appreciate that. Before I go on to the next question, I do see here that we do have some questions here from a couple of people. I will try to make some time for sure to answer some of these or have our panelists answer some of these. So I just wanted to make note of that and let you guys know you can keep sending them or you can do it via the Slack channel instead of the actual Zoom. So thank you so much for that. Now, this next question is for all of my panelists. How long have you been involved in cyber and cyber technologies, and how did you get introduced into cyber? And we'll start with you, Tennisha.
Excuse me. Hey, hi. So I have been in cyber for, I guess the past couple of years, but I've been in IT for, at least the last 15. I'd say for me, getting into cyber was a natural transition from, what I was doing before, which was quality assurance, and, just trying to, break into applications. On the previous topic, I just wanted to add real quick that I believe that SANS has a Veterans Immersion Academy that opens back up in May. So if you are a veteran, just be sure that you apply for that and take advantage of, those free courses that are available to you, just along the lines of what Teneika and Davin were saying, as far as taking advantage of all of the opportunities and things that are out there for you, because that'll save you a lot of money. But my background is in electrical computer engineering. So for me, when we're talking about software, I think it's a natural discussion to have also the conversation about cybersecurity.
Thank you. Thank you. Tameika?
So I piggyback off of what she was saying. It was a natural progression for me from computer engineering, but also by trade, doing Linux administration is just a natural thing that you just secure your system like you secure your operating system in Windows. But it's also taking it to the next level where you're doing that on an enterprise level and securing systems. So for me, as as a Linux administrator by trade and a computer engineer by degree, it was one of those things that you just naturally fell into. Now, the question should be asked is, in what area of cybersecurity do you really fall into when you're talking about what you do on a day-to-day? Because that can vary from job to job and from skill set to skill set and what you choose to shine the light on. But I think a big thing that that's not said is the focus on cloud security. So that kind of covers the gamut for everything from quantum computing to autonomous cars. So I look at me falling into cybersecurity by just like, hey, do I want to get hacked or not? And what do I need to do to secure myself? Please don't take my
right?
Please don't take my social security number.
Right. Well, how long have you been in these? How long have you been, would you say, under cybersecurity?
So under cybersecurity, by just strictly cybersecurity with DevSecOps, that would probably be in the last, I don't know, probably 6 years.
Okay.
Give or take how you want to look at DevSecOps, DevOps, however you want to look at that. So probably the last 6 years, and the rest is all Linux administration and security itself.
So
like you said, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Tameika was saying, that when we talk about cybersecurity and we talk about being new to cybersecurity, as she said, some people enumerate as many as 55 or more different areas within the cybersecurity umbrella, right? So when we're talking about this, like Davin and I focus on, penetration testing and mobile testing, and Tameika's in the area of Linux and secure DevOps, right? But these are just small subsections of what is cybersecurity. So I think that while we're talking about what is cybersecurity, we need to understand that there are so many things, and some of those, actually require computer engineering degrees, and some of them don't. So I think it's important for everybody to realize that when you're saying, hey, I want to get into cyber, right? You have to do a little bit of more research as far as what does that actually mean to me, and what is it that I'm trying to do, right? Because you have the
best fit, right?
Yeah, you have the ability to, define your niche, define, what it is that you want to do. And maybe that doesn't fit into traditional cookie cutter like, roles.
Right.
But you have that ability to, focus and specialize within the greater domain of cybersecurity, based off of what interests you.
I agree. There's a plethora of different roles out there, and there's also roles out there that you wouldn't even think would be handled under cyber. So I definitely second that, if you are definitely interested in moving into a cybersecurity professional space, that you should take the time to kind of research exactly what it is that you're looking for and what will be the best fit for you. And then you would know from there, like what you would have to attain to be able to start that trajectory. So Teneika, really quickly, how long have you been involved in cyber technologies?
I actually worked more in cyber technologies during my time at Booz Allen. There was several different, I actually supported the Navy then as well. And during that time supporting the Navy, I worked with financial analysts to make sure that we were securing their data in the best fashion possible. So that meant making sure that the data sources that we were receiving the data from were in compliance, making sure that we were doing routine compliance checks, and it was in standards of the Navy's as well as NIST standards for how we go about extracting and analyzing that data. So from that perspective, I learned a lot about different cybersecurity policies. And I also learned about different roles. A lot of people think that you have to be that person that's doing hacking and everything, but there is different flavors of cybersecurity. And there in those flavors, like me from a data background, I learned a lot about how data was used to detect risk and threats and find out what was happening when these threats were happening, what was causing them to happen, from colleagues who I would just be curious and ask questions about. So I learned a lot from that project. It was a really good opportunity that opened up the light for me to also talk about, like, this is a really good area where you can take your passion for doing like analysis and really understand how does that analysis, how does that data, how does building data sets and ecosystems need to be secure? How do you do that? And what policies, rules, and regulations do you need to follow?
Exactly. I love it. And then Davin, if you just don't mind giving us like a brief, how long you've been in the industry?
So overall, I've been in tech now, geez, about 16 years. Yeah, about 16 years. And now, with the last seven and a half, 8 years in cybersecurity. And the transition, I guess, happened somewhat naturally. I worked my way up from help desk, well, even before that, from Circuit City to help desk, and eventually I got up to like sysadmin in the school system. And during that time, we were getting hit with like ransomware when ransomware was first starting to be popular. So ransomware attacks, I managed the devices for the special education department. They kept getting stolen and they didn't have solutions on how to push out updates and software to applications to them. So started with an MDM, setting up an MDM for those devices, a mobile device manager for those who don't know. And then with the ransomware attacks, we got hit like year after year, and I got frustrated. It was just like, why is this happening? What's going on? So that led me to doing different trainings, and then seeing, led me to like doing a vulnerability assessment, which is different from a penetration test. But then in doing that, I saw that there was something called penetration testing, and it just kind of took off from there. And since we're gonna keep it short, that's where I'll end it. But yeah,
We will expand on that. Trust me. Thank you guys all. You guys all have such intriguing background stories. And I think for somebody that's new to cyber, we never know where they're at in their life. So they might be able to listen to your background and how you were able to get into the place that you're in now within this industry, and things might resonate with how you guys got your start. So I appreciate that. We're going to go ahead and move along to the next question. And Tanisha, this one is for you. As an executive director and chairwoman of BlackGirlsHack, for all of our HBCU students, or maybe even college students that may be in the room in general, what major would you say is best for cybersecurity?
So this is definitely a setup. I just want to shout out Voorhees College. I'm a professor of cybersecurity and computer science there. But I would say that you can actually go into cybersecurity from any major or no major at all. If you're going to do a major, I think that it probably makes sense to do something like, like math or computer science or, cybersecurity itself. But when it comes down to it, it doesn't matter, what your major is. What matters is that every industry, every sector that we have, has dependencies on cybersecurity. We need to make sure that we're keeping all of our data secure. So really what matters is, what you learn and how you can apply that to the industry that you choose, to the sector that you choose. But I mean, traditionally, when we talk about it, we're talking about, specifically computer science and or cybersecurity, but again, you have to figure out, what your direction is, what's your plan for world domination, what role do you want to be? So for me, my end goal is CISO. So I have to work towards that in terms of my direction. So, I went and got an MBA because I'm like, in order for me to be respected, both as a Black woman in the space, but then also as an executive, people are going to want to see that, right? So I think that the steps that you take should be in line with what it is that you're working towards. So you should have an overall goal in mind for, what it is that you're trying to do and what's the most efficient way to get there.
I agree. I just wanted to do a brief readout on the top 10 best degrees for a career in cybersecurity. And as Tanisha mentioned, computer science, computer programming, database management, computer hardware engineering, network administration, cloud computing, information technology management, and information security and assurance. And before I move on, can you let our participants know what CISO stands for, just in case they don't know?
Oh, Oh, yes, it is a Chief Information Security Officer. And for most organization, that's the top cybersecurity position in a company. It should technically be at the same level of your Chief Executive Officer and your Chief Operating Officer, in that executive suite. But it's the person that's responsible for the overall, cyber and cloud and physical security of an organization.
I love that. And you will get that. It is manifested. I know, Tanisha, that you kind of started out in a self-teaching kind of yourself. Can you share how you started building your network of professional contacts to get where you are at today? And what would you say the value of actual hands-on experiences in this field?
I think it's absolutely essential that you get hands-on skills in whatever it is that you decide to do. For me, I started off doing things like setting up a home lab, like using VirtualBox, or doing something like Try Hack Me or Hack the Box. A lot of what I did was just practice, practice, practice. I always use a Kobe analogy. Are you shooting in the gym? Are you getting out there? Are you practicing your skills every day? I think if something is important to your future and what it is that you're trying to do, that you should be willing to put time, towards it. And I think that for most people, you should be doing that. So I know that within, Black Girls Hack, we have a lot of resources, a lot of, cloud-based training platforms, so that, it used to be that there was just, just the Try Hack Me and the Hack the Box, but now we've got like the, Secure Now, we've got the Range Force, we've got a lot of different organizations that we work with that have, hands-on training platforms for you to learn things in, different areas of cybersecurity. So that's extremely, extremely important. And I would say, there are a lot of different groups that are having, workshops and doing things in this space. So, join those organizations. I'll say for Black Girls Hack, you don't have to be Black, you don't have to be a girl in order to be a part of our organization. There are a lot of other organizations out there that are doing amazing work also. Women's Cyber Jitsu comes to mind, that are helping people to gain hands-on skills and to practice to be able to get into this space. So I'd say, find people who, are interested in the same types of things that you're interested in, get involved, and, just start practicing, do a little bit every day.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Tanisha. I would like to throw in a little fun fact here. Did you know that the median base salary for a cybersecurity professional in the United States is somewhere around the $103,000 range? So if you like money, do a little hard work, that might be something that interests you or get you pushing along into what you actually want to do. So that's a fun little fact. All right, moving right along. Davin, this next question is for you. As a pen tester, AKA professional hacker, what characteristics would you say makes a good pen tester?
Curiosity. Just to kind of keep it short. If you like to tinker, if you like to ask yourself questions like, when I was younger, I used to look at things at my grandmother's house and it was always like, well, why does that work that way? What happens when I do this? What happens if I do that? Oh, that wasn't good. Let me try to fix that. And, so it's definitely curiosity. I know a lot of people will tell you, you have to have coding experience or, the ability to think outside the box. And the thinking outside the box part of it is true. And the coding part is true to a certain extent. I wouldn't say you need it to get into cyber, to get into pen testing, but it will definitely help along the way. It's a complementary thing to have. I didn't know a lick of programming. I avoided it like the plague when I first started. And then after a while, I started to look into it. And now I know enough to understand what's going on, or I know where to go, Google and Stack Overflow if I need to write up a quick script. But it's but back to your question, it's definitely just a curiosity of, and that hunger of wanting to know, well, what happens when I do this, understanding why certain things happen. A lot of people just think pen testing is, oh, I'm going to throw it in a virus scan, a vulnerability scanner, and then I'm just going to throw a Metasploit at it. That could work if all your systems are as basic as your basic Vuln Hub machine, which is another resource you can use for your lab. but you know, you have to deal with certain things like firewalls, and some systems are actually patched and things of that nature. So you have to understand what you're reading, why the Nmap scan is doing what it's doing.
Yeah.
So, and all of that comes with, like I said, with just curiosity and you know, dedication, and like Tanisha mentioned, practice, you know,
Yeah.
work in the labs, live in the labs, and you know, when I started out, I didn't have a group of people, like a support system. So I did a lot of it on my own, but now you have groups like BlackGirlsHack and Women to Cyber Jutsu and Cover Six Solutions and and all these other different companies that are doing some really great things, and they're doing it in a group where you can you know, take advantage of that and learn from other people. So I would definitely say you know, stay curious and stay in your labs.
Yeah, you definitely hit the nail on the head with curiosity. A couple other characteristics I would probably say is maybe having some good social engineering skills, attention to detail. That's kind of what comes to mind for me. But you also kind of touched on the second part of my question that I was going to have. And actually, you know, let's just say I've decided I want to follow the Davin Jackson path, right? And I'm starting out from scratch. What skills do I need for pen testing? And you kind of touched on a lot of that, but can you think of anything else?
Skills that you would need to have up front, Google. Learn how to Google for starters, because you know, pen testing, unless you've done something in vulnerability management or vulnerability assessment, you know, you're not introduced to Nmap scanning or vulnerability scanners, you know, just from a typical IT job. So, you know, learning what those tools are, and then again, practicing and understanding. For me, like I said, I learned about Nmap scanning when I started to try to look for vulnerabilities. So that was kind of my introduction. But you know, if you were just starting from scratch, I would say, you know, learn how to use Nmap, learn how to use Wireshark, learn how to use Ping. You know, there are different tools to just kind of see what's going on the network before you even think about doing exploitation. Just learn how to find your targets. And like I said, you can find all of that from that. And like I said, Google, I mean, hell, there's Google, there's advanced Googling that I didn't even know about until I got into cybersecurity, where I learned about Google dorking and Google hacking. So so I say it and people kind of look at me like, yeah, right. But no, you can actually learn a lot. You talk about social engineering or open source intelligence. Google is used a lot for all of that.
Yeah, it is.
And I think I'd probably add Burp Suite, and then also report writing. You know, because as much as we do pen testing, as much as, you know, we have hand hacking, if you can't translate that information to your non-technical stakeholders, if you can't say, hey, this is what I found and this is why I mattered, then it's not going to be a good time for you. So I think that's also important.
Yeah, you beat me to it, because I was going to say final was be communication skills, but and the Burp Suite, like I usually say Burp Suite later on, because you don't learn that in the very beginning. You learn like the network pen testing, and then you learn into specialties. But yes, absolutely right. Communication skills are key, reading and writing. And I feel like, honestly, if you've ever worked in customer service or help desk or even sales for that matter, you know how to deal with a customer, you know how to deal with an unruly customer, you'll be great at cybersecurity when it comes
to a lot of practice
stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, can I add? The other big thing is it was talked about, but we really wasn't direct. It's more or less journaling what you're learning as you're doing this, as you're going along. So when you're looking at stuff, and this is another big thing that I try to do, is what is the big problem? How do you take the big problem and make it into smaller pieces? And also maybe even take the time to mind map that out, or maybe you draw it out by hand. I don't care how you do it, but just understand how to take the big pieces and make them into small pieces, and journal along the way of things that you have tried, things where you failed, things were successful to you. But that's going to get you more back to what everyone was saying, into the communication. How do I communicate to myself? it's very, very important when you're writing notes, like, do my notes make sense? And then how do I translate my notes for someone else to read? So that's super huge.
Right, because if you can't understand them, how you gonna explain to somebody else?
Exactly.
You feel me?
I just
So, go ahead, honey.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that one of the biggest areas everyone wants to get into cyber, everyone wants to get into tech, but we don't often talk about there's always a continuous learning spectrum that happens when you're in these fields. You're not learning it, you get in the field and you're good to go. It's not like you go to Best Buy, you learn how to sell, that you know how to sell. You are learning every year. There's new vulnerabilities, there's new threats, there's new policies, there's all of this comes out and they're updated, modified. So you have to have that desire to continuously learn, especially if you're in cybersecurity, because you want to be current with whatever those new best practices are, any emerging trends, risks, threats. You need to be up to date on what's happening, how to resolve them, and how to educate others as well as yourself on and off the clock. So that is one area that I think a lot of people get confused, like, oh, I'm learning cybersecurity, I learned it. No, you just learned it at that point in time. It's always growing.
Yeah, and that's actually, we're going to get back to that because I do have a question about, upskilling and reskilling and stuff like that. So I will definitely bring that back up. So last question for you, Davin, though, as a podcaster, what has been your experience in the content marketplace? And can you tell us a little bit more about Infosec Unplugged?
The content marketplace, there's a lot of different places to get content. I think anybody who gets into cybersecurity or gets into any type of whatever should, like Tameika said, journal it. I was late into the game, so I felt like I needed to know everything before I could talk about it. And then when I started it, it was like, oh, okay, actually, it actually helps you reinforce what you know. Now I'm not the one to say, just talk about what you don't know or, lie. But no, if you're working on something, you can literally make that into a blog post and say, hey, today I learned about Burp Suite. Today I learned about what an API is or whatever. And not only are you sharing it, you're also creating a resource for yourself so that when you need to reference something. So it's almost like a cheat code there. Yeah. Because now, like, for example, if I need to learn how to configure my Kali Linux machine, or I need to change my SSH keys, I'm like, oh, that's right, I wrote that. Okay, let me go over here. Podcasting has been a very fun experience, just because it allows me to meet with a bunch of different people in the field, from all aspects of cybersecurity in all different levels of their career, from just starting out to CISO level to board members. And you get to hear their different experiences, and you actually find out that we're not too different. We're all the same. What was it? And I think I missed the second part of the question with the podcasting.
I just was wondering if you wanted to give yourself a plug, or if you want to give people more information on where to find you at Infosec Unplugged.
Yeah. Infosec Unplugged right now is my live stream podcast I do every Thursday. I have it on Twitch, I have it on YouTube, and I have it on LinkedIn. I'm working on some other things to get it out in more markets. And you can find it mainly on YouTube, the Alpha Cybersecurity YouTube channel. And then I also host Hacker Valley Blue. So I partnered with Chris Cochran and Ron Eddings to host Hacker Valley Blue this season, which is basically shedding light on a lot of the blue teamers who don't get a lot of shine in cybersecurity. And as a red teamer or offensive guy, I'm speaking to them about, their experiences and some of the misconceptions that they have, to kind of quell this red versus blue mentality. So you can check that out on Hacker Valley, at the Hacker Valley Media channel as well.
Wow. Thank you, Davin. I mean, great work. And I just really appreciate you kind of going into detail about the Infosec Unplugged and Hacker Valley Blues and all that. I really appreciate it. So we have time for another fun fact. Did you guys know that by the end of 2021, there were 3.5 million unfulfilled cybersecurity jobs. Just think about that. 3.5 million unfilled cybersecurity jobs. So, Miss Tameika, the next question is for you. As the founder of Women in Linux, can you explain what is Linux and why knowing Linux is so valuable to a potential cyber profession?
I'm gonna give you my Van Jones answer because I actually asked him a question because it rules the world. The why Linux. So for me, Linux was one of the things I stumbled into. I'm gonna give you a background on how I stumbled into it. I actually was studying Cisco networking when I was in Hawaii, and my lab partner sold me this compact Presario for $72. I tried to make it look like Windows, and I was like, this ain't it. So I went and bought Linux off the shelf, and I just started playing with it. And I asked myself as I was tinkering, how can I make money doing this? And then I started joining forums and looking online and started finding jobs. And I've been in Linux ever since then. But what I have also discovered is everybody else was in Linux too. It wasn't popular back in the 2000s, like 90, like 2000, 2005. It wasn't popular then, and then it picked up, and everybody is in Linux now. And so what I see, Linux touches everything, right? From autonomous cars to space to even Bitcoin. When we're talking about the infrastructure, when we're talking about the cloud, when we're talking about on-prem servers and so forth. So that is the reason why I think everybody should be in Linux. And I also think it gives a fundamental foundation for cybersecurity, especially if you start talking about Kali Linux, or if you start talking about how to command the command line. What is the operating system doing itself, right? How to control the services and processes behind it in a Linux box, on a Linux box. That's really strictly speaking in Linux. That's what I have discovered along my journey. It still holds true to this day, which is why we have Women in Linux.
Awesome.
Can I add something to that? I would just say from the pen testing side, if you're looking at a network, if you're looking at even a web application, whatever it is that you're looking at, you have to know where to look. And in order to do that, you have to understand, what the underlying system looks like. So having knowledge of Linux just in terms of navigating in there to do whatever tools that you're using, or, knowing where to look for where the passwords are, or if there's actually passwords stored, that information is important. And, knowing Linux is necessary to be able to do those things.
I agree. That was a good little tidbit there. That's very important. And I just appreciate you, Tameika, for all the efforts that you are doing with Women in Linux. Very, very proud of the mission that you're achieving over there with Women in Linux. So you guys also check out Women in Linux. Do you have a website or anything that you would like to mention to the folks?
Yep, we have a website, it's womeninlinux.org, but we also have a YouTube channel. On our YouTube channel, I do 2 shows, and I'm actually launching another show where we do, one show is called Tech Stocks and Jobs, where we talk about looking at different IPOs, what is their technology stack behind them, what is their security or DevSecOps needs that they're trying to meet, and also, is it a good investment? And then how to make your money in tech and then go put your money somewhere else, right? What does that money look like that you make in tech? Should you invest in this as an IPO? Should you invest in real estate? Should you invest in annuity or insurance policy? Whatever the case may be, we talk about that. And then on our second show, I try to keep that as technical as possible to show you where all the locations where Linux lies, from wind turbines all the way down to IoT devices, to the Ring doorbell, to whatever the case may be. We try to showcase that. And also, how do you negotiate and ask for the money that you want, right? When we're getting into tech, we're often wondering like, oh, am I, it's almost like we have to ask for permission, if that makes sense. Like, I got to ask permission to ask you, can I have this amount of money? So we talk about that in Women in Linux and on our show throughout. You know, I'm probably often the person that's pushed out to the side because I'm always like focused on getting the skills and the money. I call it skill stacking to lead you to the money. And people are like, well, don't worry about the money, worry about the craft. Meanwhile, over here, we got people that are making $1 million or $2 million, but I can go on, but that's what we do. And that's where I'm at.
Well, I see no lies told there, honey. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And we are running at about the 12-minute mark. I have a few questions for you guys that, you know, I kind of would like to move towards more of an open forum conversation. So panelists, please feel free to chime in whenever. So in your professional opinion, what are the biggest barriers to diversity in cybersecurity?
We only have 10 minutes.
Look,
I think the biggest barrier is getting in. I feel like we have created pipelines for us to get in, but we can't overcome the hurdles of the 7-8 round interviews that they put us through with these technical assessments that aren't made to necessarily assess what we know, but to see it's actually not what we know, but it's not even on the job work a lot of the time. So your technical assessment is probably 10 times harder than anything that you'll ever do on the job. So when we create these assessments as a hiring manager, employer, we aren't creating them with the actual individual in mind. Assessment that could really, I love consulting interviews because I feel like they really dive into how do you think? Why are you looking to solve it this way? What is your approach and what mindset are you taking into this? And giving you the opportunity to kind of think through or research things. But these interviews today are not like that. They are very, well, either you know it or you don't.
Would you guys think or agree that some of this disparity may be due to lack of knowledge among certain diverse populations?
Yes. And that's something that I think we also need to work on ourselves. A lot of us don't think that we're smart enough, right? A lot of us don't come from places or high schools or whatever that had those options available. I know I didn't. And typically when you talked about, you know, computer science or anything with technology, you were almost told, I mean, even from your counselors, almost like politely pushed away, like, nah, you might want to do something else. So we have that mentality in our own head already. That's kind of one of the biggest hurdles. And then you're right. Then when you do get into the field, you might have to deal with some unrealistic expectations in the interviews. And even if you make it past the interview, there's going to be a while there where it's almost like you're fighting for your existence. You're fighting to justify your existence in that space. Just know that, again, if you're doing the work and you're putting in the work and you're confident in what you're doing, you know, you deserve to be there just like everybody else. It's going to get frustrating. There's going to be days where you're going to want to quit, but, you know, just bet on yourself and continue to do it. But I will share a tip real quick for interviews. We're talking about labs. Write up what you do in your lab. Write it up like a pen test report. Write it up with screenshots, proof of concepts, and everything. Bring that with you or email that to your interviewer when you interview. What it does now, like Teneika said, either you know it or you don't. It shows that you know what you're doing, and it shows that you're following the process. And it also shows your documentation and reporting skills. That's just a quick tip I would like to share there.
So I have one also. So I think the biggest barrier to entry is, you know, our lack of information as far as what the value is that we bring to the company or whatever. You know, for me, I come from Northeast DC. So when I joined the workforce, you know, and they said, you know, at my first job, I'm making $55,000 out of the gate. You know, I was like, this is more money than anybody that I know, you know, makes. But I think that it's important for you to understand that just because it's more money than what you're used to or what the people that you know are used to, doesn't mean that that's the value of, you know, what you're doing for that organization. I found that at the same time, there was another woman who went to the same master's program I went to, the same, you know, engineering program that I went to, and she started the same job at a level 2 making 70,000, right? And that's because, you know, when they offered me 55,000, I didn't say, you know, hey, I'm worth more. I said, okay, you know, this is stupid money. Like, I'm in there, you know, I got the bag, you know, and this is probably, you know, 15 or so years ago. But the same thing is true today. You know, if you don't know, you know, what the value is that you bring to an organization, then you're going to accept less money than what it is that, you know, you're worth. And it's hard to make up that difference, you know, as you grow along your career. So it's important that you have allies, that you have mentors, that you have people that can speak to you about what the real bag looks like, so that you are not underselling yourself, because it's hard to get that back. And this is how we kind of like make up some of the generational wealth that we've been missing, I think, in the Black community, is by knowing what it is that we do, knowing the value that that brings to the organization, and then being able to fight for yourself in term and advocate for yourself in terms of like, hey, this is what I'm worth and I'm not accepting anything less.
100% agree.
Yeah, so
100% agree.
$20,000 difference over 5 to 7 years is $1 million in lost earnings. And people don't realize that.
It all adds up.
Taking 80K versus 100, that's a lot. That number impacts your raises, your promotions, your equity, your stock. It's all impacted.
Well, I definitely agree, and I think it's some responsibility on the industry itself. Now, I know we're talking about what we can do within the Black community, the Black cyber community. You know, I think the industry definitely has to take proactive steps to, you know, reduce and eventually eliminate the disparity in representation, right? But that's why having these discussions are vital, and having organizations like SANS establish partnerships with historically Black colleges and universities, hosting scholarship academies, which in turn do attract a more diverse enrollment into their programs, which ultimately is the goal, right? So I totally just appreciate your candor and you guys being, you know, open to discussing, you know, some of the things that we may go through, you know, just being a person of color or being Black in the cyber field. I do want to briefly touch on the topic of unconscious bias, which I think we've kind of touched on a little bit. And I'm sure at one point, even our participants have maybe possibly experienced this, whether it was racially motivated bias, gender bias, age bias, or even name bias, right? And how this has affected you in your journey towards success in the cyber field. So have you guys, I'm sure you have been through maybe one or a few of those biases.
Absolutely. I tell people all the time that I'm still a Black woman named Tanisha in America. You know, I still have to go through ATS systems, submit my resume to, you know, organizations and to hiring managers who off the break assume, you know, whatever it is that they want to assume about, you know, me being a Black woman in the space. We also see some unconscious bias in terms of, someone was talking about the interview process, in terms of those technical questions, right? And we've seen people who say online, hey, I'm intentionally giving harder questions. I'm intentionally trying to make, you know, Black candidates lives more difficult with the difficulty of the questions that they're asking, whereas they might pitch, you know, softballs to, you know, people who are white or who are the same that they are, you know. So I think,
wasn't it Google or Twitter that it came out like last year that they got caught doing that?
Absolutely. And those things, you know,
blind.
Yeah, those things represent biases, and help prevent, you know, just for us seeing more Black people in the space. Somebody also said we're in the HBCU track. Someone said that, you know, candidates that come out of HBCUs can't compete at the level that they need to when we're talking about programming and development, you know, things. So, you know, again, putting that out into the atmosphere, you know, just perpetuating those biases are all of the things that are making it harder to be a Black person in technology, in cybersecurity. So, you know, I think it's important that we use the community, you get with your squad, that you know, develop people, and you understand that you are basically fighting against institutions to be able to, you know, just exist at this point. You know, which is why it's important that you know your value, you know what it is that you're bringing, and that you have to, you know, as sad as it is, work harder than, you know, what everybody else is doing, because, you know, we have to fight against these things.
Biases. And as you guys can see, we have so much more that we can dial into. I probably didn't ask about 7 or 8 of my other questions, so maybe we can do a part 2 here. I mean, our conversation definitely is free flowing, and I really hope that our participants are getting a lot out of it from the New2Cyber perspective, from New2Cyber and being Black in the field. And before I have Delisha hop back on here and wrap up, I do want to ask each of you one final question, and it would be, what is the best advice, short advice, that you would give someone who has decided to embark on this cyber journey? We'll start with you, Davin. Best advice.
Just do it.
There
Just
you
do
go.
it. We have 400 and how many people in here right now? 447 attendees. You're here because you're thinking about it. You're here because you have that question, how do I get in or whatever.
Mhm.
Just do that.
Do it. There we go,
Do
Nike.
do the research, do the work.
Do it.
You're gonna fail. Embrace the failure. It's not a loss, it's a lesson. And just keep pushing. It's not how you mess up, it's how you recover from it. And then you just keep pushing.
Awesome. Tanisha.
Get in the gym, practice, figure out what your world domination plan is, and then just do it.
Tameika.
Stack your skills, stop asking for permission. Make sure you always ask about the money. I'm gonna always be the person that tell you to go for the money, because without it, you're not eating and you're not living. And last but not least, make sure you take your big thoughts and break them down into small, accomplishable tasks in everything that you do, and you'll find success.
Agreed. And last but certainly not least, Tameika.
Just get started, and when you start, don't compare your journey to anyone else's.
I love it. I love it, guys. Hey, I'm all the way down for part 2. I just want to thank each of my panelists, Davin, Tanisha, Tameika, and Teneika. Thank you so much for joining us today. My co-chair, Delisha, is going to be joining now, and I'm going to go ahead and let you guys, let her take it over. But it has been my pleasure. I definitely appreciate you guys letting me moderate this, and you guys all have a lovely and blessed evening, and join us for the rest of the day, if you so well please.
Thank you so much, Mo. Thank you to everyone,
you.
panelists. You all killed it. You rocked it. We're definitely grateful for you all to taking time out your day to share all the great gems that you dropped. So those of you out there who joined us, very appreciative to you all as well.